the earth has all of the answers that we need. I'm Robyn Mello. I am somewhat of a Jill of all trades under the name Eden Spore. Eden Spore is a business and a life project that I decided to launch in 2016 as a way to house all of my passions. And those passions all, to me, fall under the realm of, I usually say earth worship, because my passions, I feel so passionate about them that I feel that it goes beyond just regular, taking care of the planet. I am a permaculture designer, an ecological systems thinker, an herbalist, a musician, a vocalist, and a guitar player, and a percussion player, and an avid gardener, forest gardener, and I am an educator. So I guess we met originally through my work with Ben Weiss and Wilson Alvarez, because I've been working with them for the past few years on, we've been co-facilitating permaculture classes together.
What have you been doing lately?
What have I been doing?
Where are we now? Where are we right now?
As far as I understand, I believe it's a Tuesday. That's one thing that I need to remind myself of every day. Over the past couple of weeks, certain things have really shifted for all of us, haven't they? I have gone from being in fairly full swing course planning mode and festival planning mode. So I also am a music festival organizer. I organize events with large groups of people, and I love doing that. I gather people together and in close proximity, and we dig into really, really meaty, important information in person together. We dig into the dirt, and we sit in classes, and we sit in circles, and sometimes we hold hands. That's my life. That's like my lifeblood, and it's also a significant portion of my income. And within the last couple of weeks, as we all know and are sitting here in our own houses, quarantined, all of those events are hopefully postponed, but some of them are just canceled straight up. And I did a pretty natural pivot, which I'm feeling really good about at the moment, and stepped into my role as community herbalist. I have been making herbal medicines for about 10 years. I love plants and I love fungi. I love medicinal mushrooms. I grow and forage hundreds of different varieties of species, and I feel as that I know them intimately and consume them. And I dive pretty deep into all of the things that I grow and that I meet in the forest, and I love teaching people about them. So I have this pretty extensive apothecary, and I call myself an herbalist, but I've never been much of a seller of herbal medicines. I've mostly just been a teacher. So I have this extensive apothecary, these things that have been, that I've been consuming, that I've been giving to friends for years, that I've been giving to family members and treating various people with. And I realized, I have a lot of the things that a lot of people need right now. And I just put, on a whim, about a week ago, I put a post on Facebook and was like, hey, I have some of these things. How are people feeling? And I have had a nonstop flood of inquiries just from my social network, with people requesting specific formulas a couple formulas that I've created, asking me a ton of questions. And I'm just, consumed by preparing things, mailing them out, answering questions, doing like quick consultations, and it's all via Facebook and Instagram at the moment, and a couple phone calls here and there. Feels really, really good. And I also, people are more than willing to compensate me for these things, and I've never even like felt that I could do that before. It feels pretty special, and it's a role that I feel that I'm stepping into naturally, and others trust me. I've been getting a ton of support and respect, and in ways that I guess I didn't expect, and it feels really great right now. Yeah.
There are a lot of people who don't view plant medicine and medicine that we can gather as science, and I've even seen some like really cheeky sort of responses to what's, somebody said, oh, notice all the essential oils aren't gone in the grocery store aisle, like what would your response be to something like that, and what's your belief about it?
Well, I think that the last thing that you said is where I'm going to start, because I've been thinking a ton over the past couple of weeks about the idea of belief and what we believe in. So I'm going to go a little bit off track, and then I'll come back to your whole question. But I think that a significant amount of the problem that we're facing right now as a world, as an entire globe, and as at least as the human species in the United States, is that we have put all of our belief into consumer goods and into a government that is the least sane thing I have ever witnessed, into an economic system that we've known has been on this like perpetual forward momentum of breaking everything for hundreds and hundreds of years. And this is what we believe in, as even you and I, we may do everything in our power to try to avoid, to try to be anti-capitalist, to try to be forward thinking, to try to, put out ideas that we think are different and maybe a little bit healthier and a little bit more sane to get people to change their perspectives. But we're still under these systems. We're still living in this insanity, and we put the majority of our beliefs into these things that we know are not working. So when people ask me or say, I can't believe that you believe, I can't handle that you believe in plant medicine, or talking about how woo things are or whatever, I want everyone to examine what their belief systems really are and how much they're actually helping them or anyone else. So that's my larger scale thinking at the moment, and pretty much always. In terms of believing in plant medicine, in terms of the power of plant medicine, it's just as real as any other medicine, any other healing modality that people believe, put their faith and their belief into. The majority of pharmaceuticals that people put their faith and their belief in and pay for and consume on a regular basis are derived from plants and fungi. These are things that in their whole constituent, all of their parts are generally, their parts are greater than their individual constituents. And we are seeing epidemics of addiction because people are addicted to individual plant parts, or where people are having reactions to pharmaceuticals that are individual plant or fungi parts. I believe in whole systems medicine, in whole systems thinking, and whole systems medicine looks at an entire person's being, an entire, your respiratory system, your immune system, your nervous system, your digestive system, your mental health, your family history. You're looking at traumatic history. Where have you been? Where are you now? And what's sitting in your body? And what are the plants and the mushrooms that I can give to you that will help to adjust and balance and gently heal those systems? We live in a world, because of these pharmaceuticals, and everyone's seeking a fast solution. We have these like, oh, I can get whatever I want in 24 hours or less. Oh, I have a cold. Well, I should feel better tomorrow if I just take this thing that's going to knock out my entire microbiome and whatever illness I may have all at once. And then who knows what cascade is going to happen after that.
And then fix the symptoms that are designed to actually counter the sickness to begin with.
Exactly. So we are afraid of not feeling well, first of all. And that, I think, is a big part of the issue. We're afraid of being sick. We're afraid of running out of things. We're afraid of, we have scarcity fears all the time. We are consistently, we're just consistently afraid of everything. And we need to learn to trust our bodies, and we need to learn to trust our communities. We need to create communities, because I understand that there are a lot of people who do not have community. I'm feeling really, really deeply right now for people who are alone, for people who are quarantined in unhealthy living situations, people who are potentially facing domestic violence, people whose relationships may fall apart because they're not actually ready to be in close quarters with the people that they live with, but since they both leave and go to jobs every day and are super busy outside of their homes, they haven't recognized it yet. This is going to be, we think it's catastrophic for, our individual potential, catching a virus, but this is going to be catastrophic for our mental health and our economy, which, we're hearing on the news constantly. The earth has all of the answers that we need. All of the assistance that we require to get us out of this mess is all around us in our own individual ecoregions, arguably in many of our backyards, or the closest open space, or the closest woodland that we may have. The effects of getting to know those spaces, the effects of being in space with plants and mushrooms and other species of plants and mushrooms and other species of animals, is incredibly, I'm going to use a word that I don't know if it's rejuvenatory, incredibly healing.
Rejuvenatory sounds great. I love it.
Yeah, I think that people need to change their belief systems. And I really want to be a part of helping people through that transition, because it's not going to be easy.
Now, that being said, do you think there's an opportunity here as we sort of, we take this fall back together, some things break apart? It's easy to see that some of the things that we believed in weren't worthy of our belief. Can we take, is there an opportunity there to sort of weave something new?
Yeah, I think that there absolutely is an opportunity to weave something new here. I keep having thoughts about there being silver linings in what's going on right now. thoughts about making lemonade with lemons that we've been handed, and those sorts of like quippy cliche things. I don't want to discount any of the things that I previously said about the pain and the fear and the loss and the trauma that many people are going to be experiencing over the next foreseeable future. However, I believe that there are ways of coming out of a time like this with much more resilience, with much more of an ability to understand what really matters in our lives, who really matters in our lives, the way that we want to spend our time. I think that learning more improved methods of communicating with one another is really going to be important. And hopefully a lot of people are going to learn that over this time, communicating like we are right now. Like so many people are in really great, beautiful, funny ways over social media and in these close quarters. How do we learn to talk to each other in a way in which we're not consistently hyping up our nervous systems and flooding ourselves with adrenaline and cortisol? And there are so many resources at our disposal for that as well. And I think that if people are capable of taking a step back and examining the way that they feel in their bodies and figuring out how to lessen the fear that is usually so close to the top, a lot of people will change their actions and their behaviors and the things that they feel that they actually need on a day-to-day basis. Just as an example of something that I guess I have hope for in the future. I was out yesterday making a drop to a person that lives about a half an hour away from me who is experiencing some symptoms. I made a porch drop of a care package, basically an herbal care package. And on my way back, I had to pass a local mall, a mall that is gigantic. I don't even know how many acres of space this mall and its parking lots take up. And never before in my life have I seen an empty mall and an empty mall parking lot. And I couldn't help but smile. I was like, I need to remember this moment forever. I hope that this is more the norm as we move forward in a way in which all of these people who would be at this mall are hopefully at home, not doing consumptive things, not ordering, whatever it is that they need to get delivered to their house, but are actually home, like playing board games, learning how to cook something, having a funny conversation with their friend who lives across the country, sleeping a little bit more. It gave me hope and also, made me a little sad thinking that like, it's probably not permanent. But I kind of wish it was. And I wish that mall in 10 years was a forest.
There's, obviously a couple of big box stores have closed down recently in our area. Now, a big question that people come up with is like, how does an economic system support all of the people that we have in our realms of thinking and learning? We talk a lot about population, and just having so many people. And so it's sort of like has built up in a way to support those people, the jobs that represents, the consumption that represents. But that's because we base everything on spending. We base our well-being on spending. So what would happen in that scenario that you paint, which is beautiful, for people working, being active, and maybe changing capitalism a little bit, but obviously it's not something that we could just throw in the garbage overnight. It just wouldn't work that way, would it? Let's fix everything right now. Like we have 15 more minutes or something,
Yeah.
we could do it.
I have had countless kitchen and, bar stool conversations, living room conversations about what does the world look like without capitalism, without a capitalist system, over all of our heads. None of those have ended in, oh, we have the answer. Because obviously, if I could figure it out, then probably other people would have figured it out already too.
Well, I think that it's possible to have a world like that. The question is about how to dismantle it and reassemble it in that way, and that seems to be the more challenging thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. When I first started Eden Spore, I made these cute little stickers, these like radical mushroom art themed stickers, and the first one I made was on Christmas Eve when I was surrounded by in a big party of people that I wasn't super into and like couldn't handle all of the consumption around me. And I made this little sticker that says decompose capitalism on it. And it's a drawing of a dollar bill with a bunch of oyster mushrooms growing out of it. When I say and think decompose capitalism, I think about not destroying capitalism, not smashing, not eradicating, not, whatever, but actually pulling it apart into its, constituent parts as a mushroom, as a mycelial network would when it's consuming something, and turn it into something better, turn it into something digestible, right, for human consumption. And that's the mentality that I have around it. I think that it's a really, really privileged position to be someone who's like, oh yeah, just tear it all down, burn it to the ground, and we'll see what happens. Like, no. No. People who have that sort of mentality, if they actually were capable of coming out fine on top after the burning to the ground situation, that's because they are so comfortable. They are so they have so much relative to your average human being that they are actually the problem, not part of the solution. I've been thinking a lot about this, and something that I would love for people who are listening to this to look into. Peter Bain is this really wonderful, fantastic permaculture designer, human teacher who is a mentor and former teacher of both Ben Weiss and me. And he wrote this book called The Permaculture Handbook. And in it is this pattern language, which is a numbered list from macro to micro of all of the components within a well-functioning human living system, all of the components that can kind of nest into one another to create more fair, just, ecological, economically equitable living for human beings. Like I said, he's a wonderful man, unbelievable brain, and the way that he nests these macro to micro topics is really encouraging to me. So, not only have I learned from that pattern language, but when I look back over it, I realize more and more like, oh yeah, like, this is how I think. I would create a living situation like this, and I already am in so many ways as much as possible. So it's focused around more autonomy amongst social groupings, and so communities or cities of I believe he talks about like 7,000 people or less, integrating cities and country, rural areas in ways in which they're less kind of boxy and more, he calls them city country fingers, so that there's like more integration between rural systems, food systems, and
wild spaces.
Yeah, exactly. He digs into the ways in which communities should be structured. and the ways in which people's landscapes should be, would be most efficiently structured, the types of plants and crops to grow, the types of gathering spaces to have, the amount of like public versus private space, and even into like certain gathering types of gatherings and ways of cultivating community together, and how to, situate where your housing is versus where your water and your most fertile land is, and all of that. So it's really, really great for visualizing utopia. And because of the way it's broken down, it's possible to take each of those kind of patterns, each of those numbers, and realize, well, okay, like I can't achieve all of these things. In order for this utopia to be achieved, everything would probably have to burn to the ground and grind to a halt. And, then how are we going to do anything?
Or we'd at least have to have everybody on board.
Exactly. But you can pick and choose and see the things like within your own life and your own small community, maybe the block that you live on or whatever, to integrate, to shift, or, maybe like pivot to the left or the right a little bit and, change your system. This is a way of us designing our futures, designing our lives, designing our landscapes, designing our communities so that they are more resilient, more regenerative, more equitable, just, fair, socially just, ecologically sound. I do believe that we have all the answers. I believe that there are people out there who are already doing these sorts of things in smaller scale. And I think that if we're not able to completely transition and change everything in our society, I don't wish for a collapse. I do not. I have no idea what that would look like. I don't have the energy. I don't have the resolve. I don't have the answers. I don't think anybody does. But I do wish for people to think a little bit more about their own resilience and their own belief systems, especially as it relates to like living happy, healthy lives that are also keeping in mind the bigger picture of this planet and all of the people and all of the creatures within it.
Yeah, it's like we need people on different fronts. I've noticed a trend of people like dreaming of the homestead, being super activists, even evangelists, maybe even use that word, and then they get their homestead and then they're gone, right? And maybe that's a cycle, but like you also do need the activists and the teachers like you. You have to pull people in, but really it's more like people are going to pull themselves in. But when they have that awakening, they need to have the resources that they need, and the best resource by far is other human beings, people who are going to teach you face to face, maybe right now, camera to camera. But that brings me to another question that I had for you. You and Ben Weiss had this, and I assume some other people had this really appealing looking permaculture design course all set up and ready to go called Bones to Bloom.
Yeah.
And, like a lot of things you guys were juggling with, can we do it? Can we do it differently? Can we do it this way? But what ended up happening? What decisions did you guys make as the COVID-19 outbreak came about?
Yeah, so he and I were on the phone with each other quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. Our class was supposed to start this past Sunday, March 22nd. It was going to run every Sunday for 11 weeks in person in various wonderful locations throughout South Central Pennsylvania. It was going to include over a dozen guest facilitators in their places where they're doing really amazing, radical, beautiful, ecological work. And Ben is also, far more than I, an herbalist. He runs an apothecary business, and he has been slammed, far more than I. So I knew that he was already working full tilt. and we had to make these decisions. And we ultimately decided we first thought maybe we could do this all online. And, we were thinking about trying to recruit you and have this like live stream, like video team with like just a couple people who would come out with us and teach, so that we could teach on site without actually bringing our, 30 plus students together. And in general, people weren't super into that. And I get it. They're like, I signed up for a permaculture course where I could be in community with other people in person. I could see these spaces. I could literally touch these spaces, do hands-on demonstrations of work. I get it. And, we also have immediately come into these like, oh, I don't know where my next paycheck is going to come from space. And we eventually, after a few days, put it out there that we were going to postpone the course for 6 weeks, hopefully starting April 26th, and then just like pushing it forward, that 11-week course, thinking that we would have a better idea by the first or second week of April, what things are actually going to look like moving forward, because I've also heard, oh, we're not going to reach the peak of this for another, 38 to 40 days. And then what happens after that? I've heard this could be 3 to 7 months. I've heard, nobody has any clue what's going on right now. I would like to be able to kind of sit with that a little bit, rather than panic every single day and be hearing many different accounts of what's going on and different versions of reality that every single person lives in. Everybody's going to tell you a different story because of what they listen to and who they talk to and how they feel and how their community looks right now.
Maybe if we observed a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just like
instead of constantly interpreting off of these like very, like you said, various and very different perspectives and data.
Yeah. Observing and drawing upon like any amount of previous knowledge, taking at face value something that someone says without thinking at all about any of the other things that they've said or any of the other things that you've ever learned or know about anything is really, really bad design. So, I think that's part of the reason that we're in this mess. I wonder what this world would look like if we were less connected and if we didn't have a world of, I don't know, maybe millions of people who are all trying to get their own version of the story out there and have it go viral.
I was kind of wondering that myself. I was thinking, when was polio, and like, could we talk to somebody who's, 120 years old that experienced that in a way they can remember? You had the radio and the newspaper and, you know what I mean? And not just like this constant social media and people getting their data, their information, just a lot of rumors. And that happens in news media as well. But like they kind of have committed to a life that means vetting and fact checking, and we don't. We've committed to a life that means clicking the share button because it seems exciting and that we'll get likes or start conversations with people. That's what we desire. Even if it's false, we're just trying to start a conversation with somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just last night, I was starting to feel mostly just a feeling of confusion around, I've decided I'm going to try to take the entire day off today of, answering questions, going on social media after I'm done with you. We need to take breaks sometimes. And last night I was like, I'm feeling really confused because all of even my ability to think, I believe, fairly clearly and rationally was being challenged like on all fronts with, the press conference that I heard and the news sources that I trust and the social media news feeds of like, this is what's happening. Oh, and this is this conspiracy theory. And this is what my grandma thinks. And this, like, oh my goodness. I reached like a point of, I don't know what's real. I don't know where we are or what's going on. And like, I can't even I can't process this. And I think that that's like what a huge number of people are doing. I wonder generation to generation how it's affecting people, because my observation yesterday is it seems like people within my, kind of like the millennials and, maybe people between like 25 and 40 seem to be like really taking this seriously. Maybe they're also in the conspiracy theory mode, but I've sensed this pocket of humanity that's like, I am really trying to take this seriously and just do what we've been told. And then people who are actually in the most at-risk categories, age-wise and health-wise, I'm hearing from all of my friends and, from seeing their social media posts that they're really not taking this seriously. So that was part of my confusion, is like, is this just some massive hoax that the baby boomers are playing on us, like, because of our social media obsession? Like, is that possible? I'm like, is it possible that the baby boomers are just playing a big joke on us? Because they're like still out and about, still doing their thing, seeing their friends, and that's driving me insane. And I wonder if it's just because of how they get information versus how we get information. And it's wild. I want people to take care of themselves, and I think that it's really okay to just stay inside for 2 weeks. Just do that.
And you know what I haven't really heard anyone say is like, anyone of ilk of like, they're supposed to be in charge, is just to say, look, if everyone can come together and do this right now, things will be better later, right? Like the kind of reward benefit sort of thing. Like, yeah. Just to get you, so we understand, no one's been so crystal clear about that. Let's switch gears. I don't want to take too much more of your time. I want you to take your break that you deserve.
Okay, all right.
But let's talk about like abundance, and we can talk about it in terms of like the fact that like people, like they go to these grocery stores that they believed in, and there's hardly any meat and produce on the shelves. There's certainly no toilet paper on the shelves. They believed in these stores. They believed in this supply chain. They believed in everything else. But the truth is, for a lot of people, now we have to make a caveat for dense cities, that there's abundance all around us, and like there's food all around us, and there's medicine all around us. Do you want to speak to that?
Definitely. So I'm going to start with the caveat that there is food and abundance all around us, but there are ways of acting and behaving that many people in the moment, right now, in this moment, are not practicing, that would make that abundance disappear rather quickly. The human species has the capacity to descend upon space and devour it like a plague of locusts. We're seeing that in the grocery stores. We've seen that countless times already in terms of our ecological spaces and how we think as a species. So with that caveat in mind, if people learn about the ethics of foraging and the safety involved in harvesting in wild spaces, and dig into their belief system and their spirituality around what abundance is, and are grateful about the abundance around us, and grateful in a way in which they're also returning and recycling and regenerating spaces.
They have to become levers.
Mm-hmm. we do have the things all around us that we need. I don't have an understanding of what a world would look like currently with our current population if people actually tried to get all of their needs met from wild spaces, or even from currently cultivated agricultural spaces. In a way, if everybody shifted towards DIY, I'm growing my own food, I'm foraging and harvesting my own medicine, or within smaller community networks rather than like giant global supply chains. I have no concept of what that would look like because of the number of people. I've never been able to really think about that. I always get overwhelmed. But I am urging everyone to learn a little bit about what's around them right now. Walk outside, use your phone, download a free app, ask your friends who maybe know a little bit more, learn a couple of species of plants or mushrooms, or maybe animals, insects that you've never thought about before. Many, many, many of them are edible. Even more of them are medicinal in certain capacity. They are all our friends. I do not say that lightly. Every creature, every species, every organism that lives around us is a part of our community. We ignore the vast majority of members of our community on a daily basis. It's wild. And if people could expand their vision and their thinking and their comprehension, their observation practices, just a little bit, to think about all of the creatures all around us that are not human, that cannot infect us with a virus right now, that are our friends, many of whom could heal us or bolster our immune systems or calm down our overactive nervous systems, could nourish us with their early spring nutrients and abundance just popping out of the ground like, hey, it's spring. We are here to heal you. This is where I am right now in South Jersey. I know that there are a lot of places around that are still in winter. My sister lives in Maine and they just got snow last night. So I know it's a little different in lots of places. But here I am being like yelled at from all directions. I'm looking out the windows right now, like at my plants in pots and my like funny tended patches of things that I need to harvest, and the trees that are budding out, and the sun that just came out after yesterday's rain. Like everything around us is like, yo, we hear you're sick. Like, yeah, we know you're sick. You've been sick for a really effing long time. We're right here. Like, we want to heal you. We want you to be part of our community again. It's amazing. It is abundance incarnate. It is abundance everywhere. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't. It's like, I lived in Philly for 10 years before I moved to this space, like 20 minutes outside Philly. I arguably have a lot more of what I feel like I need right now, but I always had way more than what I needed when I lived in Philly as well. I always had so much abundance, lived such an abundant life there. I believe that everyone who lives in Philadelphia has that same ability. Talk about a resilient city. Their urban areas I'm feeling really hard for them right now. Yeah. That high density living.
But some people may be surprised to know that their neighbor is growing mushrooms in their basement and microgreens on their balcony. And absolutely, maybe you could like ask them how they do that, just something. Mm-hmm. Like it's an opportunity for us to take a little step, and maybe you and I can invite, the people who may be watching this, right now, to just Go out and just take one step and experience something. And that might come in the form of finding something wild, identify it, check it, make sure it's in a safe area. Don't take more than you need, but take a little bit and realize that that's a part of you, a part of your community, and just take a taste, right? And then through that, maybe we'll feel that abundance and just feel that support, that community support around us. We don't have to take it all. We can just experience it and feel that relief.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we as a species, as biological creatures, are consumers. We can't get around that, right? Plants are generators. One of their main actions is that they feed us. They have many, many, many functions that go far beyond that. But consuming these things, having these things within us, means that we also are, I believe, spiritually, energetically, and chemically, biologically, we are then a little bit more a part of them. They are a part of us. We are a part of them. When we break things down and in a laboratory turn them into Fritos or whatever it is that, we're turning everything into.
I'm glad you chose Fritos, by the way. It's
I don't know why. I just visualized a bag of Fritos on a shelf. Yeah. We are losing touch with every part, every essence of what those initial ingredients are. And we are not getting any nutrition. We are not getting any life sustaining energy from that processed material, that processed, what we call food. I will say this with 100% certainty. We would not be experiencing this health crisis right now if we didn't live in a society that was full of unhealthy people. Unhealthy people that are eating not real food, that are addicted to not real food, that are having not real food pushed upon them by mega corporations. Unhealthy people that are extremely stressed out, overworked, underpaid, not sleeping enough or not sleeping well enough, sitting down way too much. We have created this health crisis. This health crisis is not like oh my God, it just happened. We had no idea. Oh my God, everybody, all hands on deck. We had no way to control this. Is a lie. An outright unbelievable lie. This has been coming for a long time. And we have not prepared ourselves. We have set ourselves up for failure. I don't think it's too late. I think that we're getting a pretty major smack in the face.
I feel like we'll talk again soon. I really enjoyed it. What would you like to sort of, leave anybody with, questions you might want to pose for people to answer, and sort of, we can make this a little more of a conversation?
Yeah. Well, I want to know what people are learning right now. I want there to be dialogue. I want people to tell us what things are shifting in them. I want to know what species of plants people are meeting. I want to know what happens when people look up from their computer and their phone screens and look out the window or go for socially distant, acceptable walks. I want to learn from people right now what they're doing to care for themselves and for their families and for their communities. I want to learn what communication tactics people are learning. And I really want to learn from people what type of superhero they are. I've been thinking about, we started this conversation about the role that I stepped into as community herbalist. And that is a role that is like something that I feel really good about right now. And I'm like, yeah, I have these skills. I have this knowledge. I am confident and I believe so strongly in these medicines that I know so well that, of course, I'm going to step into this role and share it with people who are asking me. I want to know what types of superhero all y'all are. Who do you want to be? What are you stepping into? If you haven't stepped into it yet, why haven't you? What type of superhero are you that is going to be a part of making this world a healthier, happier, better place for now and for a future? That's what I want to know.
Well, have a fun rest of your day. I'm going to go look out a window and maybe go for a walk.
Yeah. And tell me what superhero you are.
I will. Thank you so much, Robyn.
Yeah, no problem. Bye, Alan.
Bye.
Thank you.